Hello there.
Hey.
Hey, man. Wonderful. So I will add Jim's cover also.
Okay.
Jim is also there.
Meeting's on.
So let's get the agenda. Where is it?
Hi, HJ. It's nice to meet you. I haven't met you before. Hi, Kit. Hi, Jim.
Hey.
Pro, see, Bindu is also there.
Yeah, Jim met Alan at the GovConf.
Okay.
Hey, Ojimadu and Victor.
Members. Meeting. And then 425. Okay, the term of service. That's the first agenda item. Actually, I didn't read about it, so maybe Kit, did you read about it or?
Sorry, read about what?
About the term of services.
Yeah, the terms of services. Yeah, I read about it. It's a problematic thing.
Okay.
The bounty system, in my opinion. And
what's wrong with the bounty system?
Criticize Evan because he's doing exactly what he should be doing, but the terms that he proposed are extremely centralized and safe, and yeah. I'm not happy with the proposal, and I'm looking for some way to come up with a decentralized solution that still solves the problems that people see. But so far, I haven't come up with any breakthroughs. What Evan is suggesting is a two-step process that basically members will propose an issue, and then there will be a committee, and the committee decides whether the issue has merit. And then if it does, the issue will be put out for bids, and people or parties can bid on it. And then presumably one of them wins the bid, and then the project or the issue proceeds.
Oh.
And it's gonna slow us down a lot.
Yeah.
Because of that two-step process. And it also has a central committee. And
do you have maybe a link to this terms of services?
Hang on a minute. Let me, it's actually, they're posted in that Google, it's www.gov.rchain.coop.
Yeah.
Let me post it in the chat.
Yeah.
And then you'll see TOS up there. And the documents are posted there. So HJ, I guess you were not at the board meeting where these things were approved, huh?
I think I was. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then it kind of flew by.
Yeah. Because Rchain project bid submission.
Yeah. And
Kit, I see 3 documents: application process, bid submission, and task form.
right.
Yeah.
And the one called task form, we've actually already integrated that into the GitHub issue template. So
okay.
I did that last week, and exactly the questions and the fields that are in that form are now part of the new issue template, including the legalese about not endangering the status of rocks. So that one is solved. It's the other 2 documents that are the problem.
Okay.
I have a more general question. Who published these documents? Why did I not, and apparently HJ did not know about them? And are they published as having been approved? Are they published? What's the status?
Well, we were told by Ian that these documents were approved at the board meeting.
I believe that that's probably the case. I know that something was approved, but why did I not know that these were submitted for approval? And why did you know and I didn't know, and apparently HJ didn't know the text of them?
Well, then internal communications are falling short. I think I heard about it from Ian directly.
So talk about centralization. What's going on with that?
Yeah.
Good question.
28 December.
And last week, these documents were posted by Ian in the Gov site, and he also joined this meeting last week, but he didn't get it on the agenda in advance, and we actually used up the entire hour, and we never got to discuss these documents. And then on Friday, there was an executive committee meeting, and we discussed them some more there. And I did a little demonstration of what we have so far and what some possible thinking is, but it wasn't sufficient for the people who are worried, so to speak. As Jim would say, the people who are making decisions out of fear.
So can we take one step backward? My understanding, and I obviously have very, very, very poor communication channels and very poor information. My understanding is that there's some sort of legal mandate to correct something about the bounty system so that we're in compliance with something or other. Does anybody know what the mandate was?
Well, the initiative or the impulse for these documents was that some people are not happy with the bounty system and they fear that it's being exploited. And
Kid, I think I don't know, but I think that it's more than just like some people feeling something. I think there was advice of counsel in some way, and I think that there is an issue. And I feel very frustrated because I have no access to any of the thinking behind these. I have no access to the meeting minutes, which are supposed to be published again by a legal requirement. They're supposed to be made available to the membership within 2 days of a meeting or so. I mean, some reasonable period of time. The board is operating in one infosphere and the members are operating in some other infosphere. And you're apparently, you've got good word of mouth with Ian, or I don't know, Evan. So you know stuff, but yeah, it's quite centralized.
Yeah, and what the fear is that the co-op can face liability for what we allowed to happen in the bounty system.
Sure. So those are all nice words, but somebody actually said what the liability is. Somebody actually said what the requirement is. And you and the four of us in this meeting right now, as far as I can tell, are probably just, telling a story about something that is an actual thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a million things that people could do that would result in liability to the co-op. Now, whether putting in this board is going to fix that problem is uncertain. I certainly the legal it's not a legal requirement as I understand it. It is, as Kit says, it's fear of opening ourselves to liability, if we have some maverick activists that break the law.
So is it a legal thing or is it not? I mean, when you say liability, it sounds like legal, and I don't think that many people are qualified to say what constitutes a liability and what doesn't. What is the liability? I mean, I'm guessing that the board was told that there's some kind of liability. How was it told? What's the document? How can we be informed about why they do this?
A cooperative is a corporation. It has the same liability as any corporation. The issue is, it's have we done. If somebody slips on the sidewalk, did we maintain it properly? Did we take a reasonable steps to prevent this situation from happening?
So HJ, is that you were at the board meeting? Did somebody discuss the liability of slipping on the sidewalk? What is the liability that was proposed?
You're still on mute. Still on mute, HJ.
I have to say that we have gone about this pretty quickly. So a motion was put in by Kenny to adopt the bounty terms of services. And then everybody voted as agreed. So, and we didn't go into the details of the document. And also, what can I say more about it? Yeah, the documents that are under discussion They are sent pretty late to the board members, so we don't have actually a chance to go deep into it. But it's now I see it. It's more killing the bounty system as it is. So
it sounds like to me we just basically need to ask Kenny. We need to put together a series of questions to ask Kenny to clarify exactly why these terms of service were put in place. What was the initial impetus for it? You know, what is it trying to protect the co-op from? And we just need to get him to clarify that, because it seems like no one on this call, and correct me if anyone here knows the reasons, but it seems like no one on this call currently knows the reason for it. So Alan, I'm just trying to kind of circle up what I'm hearing here. So it seems like we're going to have to go and actually ping Kenny after this call to get clarification on that.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
Todd, I think you said exactly exactly.
It may be something to bring up at the member meeting as to whether the bounty system is continuing or not.
You know, I think the bounty system is one issue. I think that there's a more fundamental issue as to the board represents the membership. That is not actually how it works right now. So the history is that the bylaws of the cooperative are sort of default bylaws. They're not very well thought out. At some point, they're going to need to be amended. But a cooperative, in any case, needs to reflect the membership. And the membership is not given. Apparently, even HJ was not given much detail before the vote. The membership was given zero detail, did not know that such a vote was happening. This is not the first time that that's happened. There's a fundamental issue where the membership is not acting in accordance with the laws of the state of Washington where the co-op is operating.
Yeah, okay. So Ian has joined the call also.
Yeah, I heard the end of that, and I'm sorry. What laws?
It's about we're talking about the terms of services for the bounty system.
Right. No, Alan. What laws?
And
what laws are being violated by the co-op? I think we need to know right away if that's happening.
Okay, so Ian, let me back a tiny bit off, and what I'm saying is, let me give you some history of this particular conversation. We're talking about the modification to the terms of service of the bounty system or something. And HJ was describing how this happened. HJ said that a motion was brought up. HJ said that he didn't really know the details of what the reason for the motion was and what the contents were. And there was some discussion about legal liability. And what I'm saying is that the co-op, by the laws of Washington, is really supposed to be an organization that's controlled by its membership. So that's my comment. And yeah.
Okay, I can speak about each of these, but still, I very much want to know what laws you feel are being violated.
Yeah,
I don't think that any laws are being violated at the current time. So please allow me to retract that statement. What I'm saying is that as my understanding, and Ian, maybe you can correct me, is that the cooperative is supposed to be a member-run organization. The directors are supposed to represent the membership. And what I was speaking, the particular point that I was speaking to, is that apparently a resolution was passed by the board. According to one of the board members, HJ, the background was not presented in much detail. And as a member, I feel that I did not know that this vote was being taken place. So before the board votes on things, I would assume that members would be informed and give input, that kind of stuff. So Ian, does that make sense?
Yeah, just so I can summarize. So you feel that the prior to board meetings that the agenda should be circulated to the membership, and you'd like timelier publication of the minutes, letting the membership know what was
not only that,
Yes.
but also the process of setting up these terms of services.
Yeah, I think.
So
I think that there's something very wrong, because
HJ, I believe you received the emails about the terms of service, and you were one of the board members who voted unanimously to accept those terms of service.
Yeah.
So why did you vote for them if you now disagree?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I wanted, how long has this been going on?
Well, the terms of service became effective at the time of the meeting. So that was April 6th. We all voted for the resolution, and we also all agreed that it should be effective immediately.
Okay.
So if you had some disagreement as to the terms of service, you should have brought it up during the board meeting and not voted for those terms of service yourself.
Yeah, yes, that's right. That's an error of my side. But I wanted to know how long the documents have been circulating about the.
We could go back through our emails, because I believe when Evan was creating the terms of service, he circulated some emails just asking our feedback and opinions. Yeah. And also, he didn't make them himself. I believe he had other legal counsel as well. One of the questions that, or one of the issues that he wanted to address was the danger that that some rogue members could propose bounties on something which would be harmful for the co-op. And I mean, such a thing like something perhaps that might be illegal. And then all it would take is several members to agree, and then the co-op would be in a legal bind.
Okay.
So that's why
that certainly makes sense, Ian, and yeah. Getting the explanation now is great. And I'm probably.
Like, yeah, I'm
probably
sorry.
a minority in this particular conversation, because I'm not as concerned with the bounty system or with the terms of service. I'm more concerned in general about the process of members being informed and the collective intelligence of the membership being applied to issues like this.
Yeah, actually, Alan, we spoke about this a little at you and I at the developer conference. And so the issue, one big issue, is that at the conclusion of each of the board meetings, we circulate the minutes like later that day, and then Evan generates a DocuSign that all of the board members sign before it's published onto GitHub. Now, this was April 6th board meeting, and those minutes haven't yet been released.
Okay, so Ian, let me just talk about that specifically. I was informed that the person that oddly enough hadn't signed the minutes was Vlad. And in consensus terms, that's called equivocation, and somebody that equivocates gets slashed. I spoke with Vlad and Meta as well. And Vlad, we believe that Vlad has signed those now, yes. But I still don't have, on the GitHub, the minutes still are not published.
Yeah, you know what? I'm looking now at the DocuSign, and all board members signed it, including Vlad. So it really should be published. Actually, I don't think Vlad was present at that meeting, so he missed the April 6th board meeting. But all the signatures are here, so it really should be published up onto GitHub. So I'll look into why that hasn't happened yet. The last signature came in on April 20th.
But when did the first draft of the terms of services went to the board members?
I mean, I'll search now if you want to get back to me in a second.
And sorry to just kind of jump in here, Ian. So first of all, hi. Sorry you got ambushed when you just joined this call. I don't think none of us, I don't think intended for that to be the effect when you came on.
No, it's good to clear everything up.
Yeah. So I guess just from my perspective, I think the question is, do you guys ever circulate the text to the membership before the board meeting? So, you know, I'm not in the meeting, but I know HJ is, so that I could let him know what my thoughts are and he could communicate that effectively within the meeting. Is that something like feasible? Because I think that may alleviate some of Alan's concerns about different infospheres where, you know, people who are within that board are obviously privy to information and eventually conversations. The rest of the membership is not, and it can kind of break down some of the barriers between the two a little bit.
So
yes.
I think publication of an agenda sounds like a pretty good idea, just to keep everyone informed and then give the membership some opportunity to get something onto the agenda. So we don't have a good process for that right now. I mean, just like a Discord channel for proposals.
Yes, and I think Todd said it very well. The infosphere of the board, probably there are some things that need to be kept private, and but to the extent that we can have transparency, to the extent that we can know not only the agenda items but the ancillary documents, the things that your guys are looking at when you try to make these decisions on behalf of the membership. If there's a process, as Todd is suggesting, for making that more available, then the infospheres might not ever be exactly the same, but they should be as close as we can.
Sounds good to me. I mean, we certainly intend to be as open and transparent as possible. That's part of, I think, one of our main principles. I mean, Greg talks about it all the time, radical transparency. So yeah, there might be some documents that we wouldn't be able to publish, but I mean, HJ, we're two board members on the call. If we want to try to put an agenda item for the next board meeting to try to address this, I think we can get some wording together and get this taken care of.
I think we can, each month we can make an issue for the agenda of the board, and then the members can see what we are going to speak about.
And have feedback, yeah.
I'm concerned because I've been onboarding people to the bounty system, and you know, whether or not it means they won't get paid.
Okay. Yeah. So the payment process has been pretty clumsy at the moment, and in April it's going to be better. And the main reason is that we are very busy with emails about invoices. And April, it will be the first month that, or the invoice for April will be the first month that it will go through forms. So I expect it's going to be a lot better. But the members, they don't have to worry about their payment. I mean, they will be executed, and they just need some patience. So, Ian, I'm still looking for this draft of terms of services. Did you find anything?
Just give me another minute. I'm looking.
Okay.
Yeah, go into the link that Kip threw in there before. I can see that there's a number of forms that show what the process is going to be like, which, to be honest, makes sense. That you want to make sure that there are members of the co-op reviewing each of the tasks to make sure that there's no one trying to game the system to approve tasks, right, that aren't in the co-op's best interest. So that process, looks reasonable. It's just slightly more codified than the existing one. It has a little bit more paperwork. But yeah, I don't see anything regarding terms of service, nor do I see anything about. I'm assuming that there's going to be some type of bounty board that's reviewing these documents and either accepting or rejecting tasks that are submitted. And so I guess my question is, how is that board or those individuals being selected? And what's their evaluation process going to be like? Yeah.
Yeah, those are good questions. HJ, it was March 29th was when I first got an email from Evan about this.
Okay.
And so Todd, you're talking about this task approval committee. And so when Evan drew it up, there was nothing said about who should be on that committee, how that committee is seated. So that's something that we need to get implemented. The executive committee is working on that right now. So at the next meeting of the executive committee, we're supposed to be looking at implementation plans for how these new and approved terms of services should be implemented into the bounty system.
Okay.
I know
the big fear is that this centralization can grind the system to a halt while these things are being reviewed rather than people starting work on them immediately.
Yeah.
Having a review and having things rejected probably is something that is good. I mean, certainly we've tried to implement self-policing of the system.
So Jim, I think that everybody or a couple of people have said that there's not going to be a quantum shift. There's not going to be like an immediate thing. We can transition into the newer system. And as far as monitoring the system, perhaps somebody could suggest a way of organizing some of the members or some people that are knowledgeable about the bounty system and how it's been good in the past and how it might work in the future. And that could even be itself a bounty project, as far as I know, where you look at what the terms of service are at the moment that were approved by the board. If there are modifications that might be proposed, then I would guess that the board would be okay with looking at a proposal of that form. And that would kind of put everybody helping each other to make the system right. Good.
Yeah, I think there's one other aspect that's worth mentioning, and Jim, I think this is relevant to your point. And I take your point on decentralization being potentially faster, but the issue I think the co-op or the board is most concerned about is the fact that it's very difficult so let's say I'm looking at the tasks that you're putting up. It's very difficult for me if I'm also putting up tasks to go to you and say, hey, I think you've quoted your task too high. You're saying it's going to cost much more than I think is reasonable. Because then in turn, you're going to look at mine and overly scrutinize my bounties. It creates a situation where, just from a social standpoint, I have a disincentive to ever say that your bounty is priced too high because that can impact me. And so I think the value of having the board is that the board or the group that are reviewing the tasks can have a clear mandate on how much how much money, for example, should be allowed to be paid out in rock in any given period of time. They can have hard guidelines and rules. They can be very rigid because they themselves maybe aren't going to be putting bounties up. And in fact, it probably makes the most sense for the board to be constructed of people, the review board constructed of people who are not doing any of the bounties themselves, so you can at least attempt to disambiguate some of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think in practice, I don't think anybody has a problem. I mean, I'll put in a budget for 2,000, and then a number of the people here may put in 200. Okay, we disagree on budgets, and that's okay.
Hey, Todd, you've got great radar. That's exactly what Evan was talking about at the last executive meeting, saying that that this approval committee should not be made up of people who are actively submitting bounties themselves, just to avoid self-dealing. So that makes a lot of sense. But
well, on the other hand, it doesn't make sense because they don't know where it's about.
Right. Yeah, that's the conflict. So if you take someone like Dan Connolly, who knows more about this, well, he created the web app and a chain of trust, like a reputation system on the current iteration of the bounty system that shows really great promise. So he's been working hard on it, and also getting paid through the bounty system. So if we were to cut Dan out of the bounty system, that would be a great loss because he's doing such great work. But then again, he's also probably the best person to look and see what tasks are worth doing and which aren't. So the way around that is to find another way to pay Dan, like with a statement of work. So the people on the task approval committee, they can perhaps still do bounties, still get rewards, but just not through the bounty system to avoid the self-dealing. And then Jim, what you said about if you put in an issue for $1,000 or whatever, who's going to vote you down? So Todd was saying, if one of us comes and say, hey Jim, your project isn't worth $1,000, it's worth 500. Well, you're going to reciprocate and probably slash the task that Todd proposes. So this idea of I scratch your back, you scratch mine, and the opposite. I mean that can be pretty awful.
Can happen. In my case, Kit has downvoted stuff I've written. I mean, we're good friends. It's okay if he's is suggesting that I put in too much money. I don't mind that. I don't know what the budget should be any better than he does. And we do cooperative work. We had a number of people involved in the project.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this discussion is awesome. What Todd brought up, and Ian, your understanding of organizations and organizational behavior and so on, it's great. What I would propose is that there is a system involving the membership, for instance, a bounty to study this particular issue, this particular decision, and Ian and Todd and Jim and everybody else that has opinions or knowledge or experience with the bounty system can contribute to that. And in some kind of fashion, we arrive at a group consensus about how a bounty system should work, which I think is totally reasonable because everybody's involved with the co-op in very similar, we're all incentivized similarly.
Yeah, well, I think that the bounty system is great when you see the progress what's made. So we first started off with some spreadsheets and a reward system and a budget system. And then now we have already an application that runs very nicely, and I've attached some spreadsheets to it. So the payment system is almost perfect. People don't have to do a lot.
So Rchain, would you be amenable to if Todd or Ian or Jim or anybody wrote a bounty for modifications to the current terms of service, which were adopted and are the current governing thing for the bounty system, but something that could involve quite a number of people? I mean, I would guess that the budget would have to be fairly substantial, like $20,000 or something like that, and get all the people, get Meta, get people that use the bounty system effectively to contribute their opinions and eventually come up with something that would look like a resolution for a modification of the bounty system that would work properly.
Would you be willing to guide such a work group or team, Todd?
Yeah, I could potentially do that. I mean, I think there's some pretty interesting economic models that have already been shown in the real world that could be applicable to a bounty system. But yeah, I'd have to do my research. But I'd be interested in doing that if that's something that the board would also support.
Right now you just have to add an issue in GitHub, and we can sign up to work on that issue with you, and we can set up.
Okay.
I mean, also one of the goals of this bounty system is to get rocks out into the hands of people, and in small quantities, and with a lot of people. So that increases the acceptance of Rchain, and it increases the way that people like Rchain. And so I don't think we must be too strict on it.
I think that's more of a side effect and not a goal. We're not looking at bountyism here.
I think we do.
Yeah, Greg definitely wants to get the rocks out there. And the idea is that we have a very large treasury.
Yeah.
And we're willing to experiment and try things.
Well, look, you guys voted me in as a board member, and I see that I have the job of a fiduciary responsibility that what the co-op is paying for gets some good value out. So I'm not on board with the bountyism. I don't think as a board member, I don't think that's a responsible way to look at it.
You have to start with a low entrance fee. So, I mean, when you put a lot of restrictions on the creativity of people, then they don't get anything. So, in the beginning, it's very loose, and in the end, it's more manageable. Then you look more at return and more at the added value for the cooperative.
So if that's your goal, then you could try capping or having different levels of rewards, so that encourage more small projects with small rewards, and then have a higher bar for the larger rewards. We could scale it that way.
But for scaling, you need already a lot of issues and different kind of issues, and then you can see what's going on in the system. What people come up with. But if you start with that, then if you start managing, then you don't get anywhere.
Yeah, and for scaling, we have to encourage members to participate in in reviewing the bounty system, and maybe we need to reward them for participating in the bounty system. And there are issues out there in the bounty system already on improving the bounty system. and that's includes Dan's inclusion of the trust factors, which is sort of like gives us we can require a certain trust factor in order to fund a budget, and that will ensure that people that are active in the ecosystem have reviewed the budgets and taken part in the budgets, as opposed to just three random guys going off and doing something on their own.
Well, I agree with, I think everybody here is basically in agreement. Ian is standing up for fiscal responsibility, which is very important to all of us. HA is standing up for participation, which is also very important. I've spoken a little bit with Meta. She has strong opinions about how bounties are used effectively in her organization. Let's get Todd. Todd, are you volunteering to create an issue that's got a large enough budget to get participation and attention from a diverse group of people, and eventually make a recommendation in a month or two, or however long it takes, to get a bounty system that is aligns incentives and economics. That's what we're after.
Yeah, that's true. So we need a few more months, and then we have a perfect bounty system.
So I'd love to volunteer, Todd, as well. I know a little bit about his qualifications, but not as much how much time he has available. But even if you can take a look, I mean, we can help supply some information, how the current system is set up, just to get some more ideas and feedback. I don't know if it's time to jump in and just shred the thing and make a new one. The idea of the patch that the board applied was this task approval committee, and looking how to implement that. But I very much welcome your help if you want to dive in a bit on this, and I'd love to support you in that effort.
Yeah. So
Ian, would you support a budget like a bounty budget, or some sort of budget that could be used in small portions that Todd could maybe invite people with, to have a group suggestion, a membership group suggestion for the next iteration of whatever the governing rules are?
I don't know. I don't really want to speak for Todd. I want to see what he would like to do.
Yeah. So I mean, I think so. One, I do have a bit of time. I could probably slice off 10 to 15 hours a week to be able to put something together on this. So I think that's probably enough to be able to actually do the research, get people's opinions, and pull together a document that kind of takes all the stakeholders, right, from the community. So, obviously people in the bounty system, people in Parafex, the executive, the board, get people's opinions on all of those, put it together, and then pull together some, research on the economic side of things. So I'd go through some academic papers to actually try and root this thing in something tangible. But yeah, I'd be happy to do that and see if we can, kind of come to an agreement on a system that is going to work for all of the parties involved, and has the type of transparency that Greg Meredith always talks about. So I'd be happy to give that a shot. Sure.
So one of the challenges about leading something like that is keeping everything open enough and engaging the community in feedback. So can be a bit of a balancing act. You might have a lot of people jumping in, loud voices with their opinions. So you're looking at quarterbacking an effort of how would we scope this out? Let's see.
Yeah. So,
Todd, could you type your email in the chat box?
Yeah, sure, happy to. Yeah, in terms of Ian, in terms of scoping, I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
I don't know what an appropriate number is. I probably will end up doing just a bit of research for free, just so I can understand, what are the other bounty systems that are currently already out there? How have they generally been operated to date? Before I'd even have a sense of even how to talk about that. But yeah, I'd be happy to do that and then come back perhaps next week and I can let everyone kind of know how I think I would put this together. So perhaps that's maybe the next step. Give me the week and I'll come back on this call next week and let you guys know, exactly how I'd scope and run this. And get some feedback from you.
This planning, can be covered by an issue. I mean, you can start with a small budget, maybe $2,000 to investigate doing this.
Sure. I guess I could put that budget in, the investigation budget. Sure.
And then the GitHub thread is sort of a place that we can keep people informed as to what's going on in this effort and involved.
Also, Ian's remark or his choice of words was, I thought was very good, quarterbacking. So Todd, if you accept this, you're quarterbacking the whole team to try to figure out, good procedure, works economically, works legally, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Todd was mentioning other models that are out there in the world right now, and also we should make sure that he speaks to people. We have some people who aren't here in the room right now who are very, very knowledgeable about the bounty system. Mostly, you've got Dan Connolly and Jake Gilberg worked quite a bit in the current web app. So those guys definitely should you should tap them. But does anyone know any kind of similar bounty system which is out there other than maybe in Spiral? Because this is a
Yeah, the problem is, I know of a bunch of bounty programs, but almost all of them are centralized. 100%, and it really doesn't make sense for us to replicate those in entirety. So it's really going to be,
they're centralized because they're drawing from a fixed treasury. So usually, whoever controls the treasury, that's centralized, right? So
yeah, exactly, yeah. And to a certain extent, certainly the treasury is not centralized in the same way with the co-op, but there are certainly some very interesting economic risks because of that as well, and that those need to be mitigated by the system. So that's really the big delta between the existing bounty systems and the one that Rchain eventually needs to agree on.
So just a quick question. I want to know if PowerFX is also drawing from the bounty.
PowerFX? No. PowerFX is a partner. So the way that deal was structured was
they are excluded from the bounty system.
The reason I asked.
So wait, how?
Was talking about the stakeholders, he mentioned them. I don't know if it was Todd or Alan. He mentioned PowerFX, and I'm wondering why are they a stakeholder in this?
It's my understanding that some of the developers are paid through bounties. I think that's appropriate because the bounties that for opcodes and so forth, they've been very beneficial. They've been very effective.
Abner Zhang.
Yeah,
I think that's Abner is he's a success story. Yeah. He's great. And we want to do more of that. We want to make the bounty system to fund things from all areas.
But Abner Zhang is not under contract by Parafex. So
right. Yeah, he's working through the bounty system, but Meta
also people that have an SOW, a statement of work, they cannot participate in the bounty system.
I think those are all of the nuances that should be put as a deliverable from the research work that is going to be done, right?
Okay, I'm going to jump off the call and go to the community meeting in a minute. Todd, as Ian and others have suggested, there's a lot of people that are not necessarily on this call that you might want to proactively contact and just let people know what you're doing so that they can volunteer input, and maybe if they're truly interested, they can work with us.
Cool. Yep, will do. Yeah. Obviously, I will. I'll get the initial research bounty in there and try and come up with the structure for things, and then I will absolutely start reaching out and try and get a good list of people who need to provide input and guidance as we start figuring out how to get this all resolved. Cool.
Okay, we have 1 minute. I'm just quickly showing the current state of the members site. There's an issue about it, and this link is in there. But this is the site that we set up a couple of weeks ago, and this is the same site with a different theme that looks a lot more Rchain like. And we would like feedback on it, so please have a look before we end this meeting.
Can you share both links?
Yeah, let me find the chat. Okay, that's the link, and this is the issue for feedback that also has the link in it. So I think we're done.
I think so too. So I hope to see you at the next meeting of Greg. And I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye, guys. Be in touch.
Bye, everyone.